Hi everyone, welcome to Pawpaw's Workshop. Today we're continuing the beginner series and we're going to be talking about a framing square and a speed square. I'm going to show you a lot of the tips and tricks that these two tools will be able to do. The one thing that I'm not going to cover in the beginning series is how to cut a roof. In other words, being able to cut the rafters for the common rafters and the hip rafters. That will be for a whole nother video. But there's still plenty of tips and tricks that I can show you with these two tools. So let's get started. The first thing, the framing square has been around for decades, many decades, and was a vital tool to all framing contractors for literally decades. And then the speed square came along, and this was something that you literally could just throw in your apron and have with you all the time. And it does have some definite advantages. But both tools serve a very vital role on the job site. And the first thing I want to show you is just a simple, it is a square. You can mark it, and you will have a square line that's 90 degrees. That will be 90 degrees, and you can cut your wood. The framing square, you can do the same thing. You hold the framing square along this edge, and you let it drop down just a little bit, and that forms a good solid surface, and then you can mark your line. The next thing that you can do is actually have it where you can mark 45-degree angles. Did you know that the framing square can do the same thing? The numbers that are on the outside will be starting at this point. Right here at the corner is a starting point for these numbers. 1, 2, 3, 4, and so on, and the same thing going this way. Well, what you can do is take a number, and I'm just going to use 6, and we'll find 6 on this side. Then I can put that down on my board where it aligns to here, and I slide this up to my 6, and then I can mark it. Guess what? That's a 45-degree angle also, and you can verify it. The next thing that works really well is to use this as a guide to support the saw. So I can put that right there and be able to make the cut, and it'll keep my saw nice and square. The one thing that you want to be able to do is put the square on the top side. This gives a long point here to be able to support the saw to begin with when you start to make your cut. Some people will do it this way, and it works. But you do not have this space down here to support the saw. You literally have to support the saw beginning onto the wood itself. The square, the framing square, can do the same thing. You set it where you need to be, you hold it, and remember, we're holding this at a little bit of an angle. So as a result, this forms a ridge that the saw can guide on just fine, and this will give you a lot of support out here for the saw. So using the framing square and the speed square as a guide is an excellent use of the tools. And the important thing is, it doesn't have to be just a circular saw. You can use this with a jigsaw as well, with both tools. And that will make it where it'll keep your saw straight and cut the straight line. The next thing that I want to show you, you can use the speed square just as a ruler, because there are your inch marks, and it's broken down into 1/8 inch increments. And for our framing environment, that's really all you need. So if you need to measure from one mark to another mark, you can just simply put that down and know that's 4 3/8, and you got it. You don't need to grab the tape measure. The next thing that I want to show you, on some speed squares, you have this little diamond. This diamond is actually set at 3.5 inches, because a lot of times on the job site you will need to mark for 3.5 inches. To then be able to do that, I can just put this down and draw my line, and that gives me 3.5 inches. No need for a tape measure. Now on this section you have this a 1, a 2, and a 3 in here. And what's nice about this is oftentimes on the job site you need to be able to lay out where your stud is going to be, and next to it a jack stud for like a door opening. And to be able to do that, everything's already here. So to be able to show you how that works, if the first stud's going to go right here and it's going to be on this side is the placement of the stud, then all I need to do, I can mark it right there. That gives me that 1.5 inches, and then without moving anything, I can just go over here to my 3-inch line and mark that, and then I have that marked. So that's my stud, this would be the jack stud, and that would be the location. So it makes it very, very quick to be able to lay it out. Now, how can you do that with the framing square with the same thing? Well, the interesting thing about it is the framing square is the 1.5 inches wide at this point, which is the same width as a 2x4. So the question becomes, why is this called a 2x4 when this is actually 1.5 inches by 3.5 inches? Well, the reason being is at the mill, when this board was rough cut, it was 2 inches by 4 inches. After the milling and the planing, it gets planed down to the 1.5 inches wide by the 3.5 inches. So the framing squares are designed where this piece right here is 1.5 inches wide. So using the same example where we need to have the stud and a jack stud, I can do that, and there's my jack stud, slide that over, and there is my stud. So it's still very fast to be able to do the layout. You just do it in a little bit different manner. Hi everyone, I've got a special announcement to make. One of the things that I have struggled with over this last 1.5 years is being able to create a lot of different projects on a minimal budget, and many of those projects have come from the scrap bin. Well, one of the things that I have done is I have launched the Patreon website. So that is up and live, and I'm currently uploading a lot of different videos into that, and I've got some special content that's behind the scenes that's only going to be for the Patreon family. So if you would like to be able to help contribute to this channel, please consider going over to the Patreon and joining as a Patreon member, and realize that that site is just beginning, and I'm going to have a lot more content in it, and we're going to be doing some live streams once a month with the Patreon members, and we've got special behind the scene things that we're going to be doing. So it's going to be a lot of fun. So please consider joining the Patreon family. The next item that I want to show you is all these lines across the bottom. These are in degrees. So 5 degrees, 10 degrees, 15, and so on all the way across. So what this does, this creates a protractor for you. See, with the speed square, you don't need to have to worry about having a protractor with you. Okay, to be able to use this, I'm going to put this down right here, and this is going to be my pivot point. So as I rotate this over, and let's say that's the 10 degrees, I can make my mark, and that shows as a 10-degree line. And you know, I'm using a carpenter's pencil too. Any idea why a carpenter pencil is flat? That's for another video. I'll talk about that next time. The only thing that I'm going to touch on is these numbers along here are for your common rafters, and this is for your hip and valley. And we're not going to really go into those a lot, but realize that these are angles too. So for an example, this right here is a 4, and what that would signify is a 4/12 pitch. And that means that the roof goes up 4 inches for every 12 inches of run. So that would be the angle. So to be able to show you, and this is all I'm going to show on the roof part, I would bring this over to where it has 4, and that would be my line. So this would represent a 4/12 pitch for the roof. Now how does that work with a framing square? We're going to line this up. Let me get this in the camera here, where my 4 is right on this line, and then this 4 is on the outside, so I come across to my 12. So I have my 12 right here and my 4 right here, and you notice that's exactly the same line. So this tool is designed specifically for being able to lay out your roof. You can use the framing square as a protractor too, but more specifically, it's really designed to be used as a method of being able to cut the rafters. And you can use this same method to be able to lay out the stairs. The next thing that I want to show you is when you're laying out a wall, and let's say that wall has the studs at 16 inches on center, the first thing that happens is you're going to have one at the very end. So I'll take my framing square and I can mark that. And then a lot of times what people will do is take the tape measure, and every 16 inches, which is marked in red, and we've talked about that before, that would be the center line of the studs. Now how does that work with the framing square? So what I would do on this first one is just set my square at the 15 1/4, and I would mark that, and that would put it directly into the center. And when you move to the next stud, all you have to do is put this at the 16 inches right here at this point, and then, whoops, I'll put this at my 16-inch line and draw it, and that will put it directly into the center, and then I can continue on down the wall just like that, and I don't even need to have these marks. So this is a very, very useful tool for being able to lay out the walls. The next thing I want to show you is you can actually draw a circle with this. And to be able to do that, you can put it right back at the pivot point, measure over where you want, and let's say you want a 2-inch radius, so that's a 4-inch circle. All you'd have to do is just put that on here and just go around. And you can see the idea on being able to do that. And it doesn't take a whole lot of effort, and it's still going to be a whole lot quicker than being able to have to do this if you didn't have a compass. The next thing that I want to show you, and I just grabbed something that was round, but if I needed to find the center of this, how am I going to do that? That's really almost impossible to find the center of it. But here's the trick. You take the speed square and you set this up where it forms that 45-degree angle right here. And then you just slide this over in place. You do a pencil mark there, you can rotate it, and there's your center point. You know exactly where your center is on any circle. So that's a lot better than having to carry another specialized tool. This will do the trick for you. Now, one more thing that I want to show you, on some of the speed squares, they have a CL here, and that indicates center line. Now with the string line, with the plumb line hanging down, I can adjust that, holding this on my center line until that comes right to that point, and I know that that's level. And the last tip that I want to show you, you'll see that these numbers are actually a little bit hard to read. Well, one of the things you can do is take some paint, and I just used acrylic paint, and I just rubbed it across, filled in where the numbers are, and then wiped it off. So that makes it where it's much easier to be able to see and read. So there you have it. You have about 10 things, actually more than 10 things, that you can do with the framing square and a speed square that really speeds up what happens on the job site, because speed is critical on the job site. Now the other thing that I mentioned to you, throw out a little hint, is why is a carpenter pencil flat? This is a very, very useful tool on the job site, and we'll cover that next time in a short video. Now don't forget, in this beginner series, we've talked about the drill and we've talked about the jigsaw. I've got several different projects that I'm working on right now that I'm only going to be using the jigsaw and the drill. Hi everyone, thank you for watching my video today. If you like the video, please go ahead and hit the subscribe button down below and the little bell next to it so you'll be notified on the different videos that I upload. Also check out the videos over here to be able to stay up to date on the happenings in my shop. So again, thank you for watching my videos.